Well, welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk on the Rock Rage Radio Network. I have with me, all the way from Florida, the one, the only Mr. Jack Starr. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here.
Good. Well, I'm happy to have you. And Out of the Darkness, Part 2. Part 1 was in 1984, so it's been a while.
Yeah, it took a long time to, I guess, to be ready for number 2. And honestly, I hadn't even really thought about doing a part 2. And then a couple of years ago, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he said, everybody seems to make sequels, for everything, whether it's, Star Wars or whether it's whatever, Batman. Why not a sequel to Out of the Darkness? And I thought about it, and I said, well, I need to find a really good singer for starters. And I went ahead and I said, why not? I think it's a pretty cool idea.
Well, so I'm looking at the backup or that your friend of mine, Mr. Michael Brandvold, sent to me. And Michael's a very good friend of mine. And Giles Lavery, yourself, Eric Juris, Gene Cooper, Rhino, and you had guests Mark Zonder, who obviously legendary Fates Warning drummer, Jimmy Waldo with Alcatraz. I mean, it must be nice that you can just kind of pick up the phone and you have that firepower on your Rolodex. Not to date myself, but that's incredible.
Yeah, more important too is that all the people you just mentioned are really great musicians. It's like it makes things a lot easier, when you're working with people that really have their act together. I mean, Mark Zonder, one of the greatest drummers, Rhino, another incredible drummer, and everybody else, Jimmy Waldo. And so that definitely helps a lot.
Well, and I mean, I'm a drummer myself. I grew up listening to guys like Mark, like Scott Columbus from Man of War. And, so I hear the track and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is, I felt like, not to say that the music sounds dated, but you don't hear music like this anymore. Like the guitar driven kind of proggy, Alcatraz-y meets, Yngwie Malmsteen meets Pelletier. I mean, it's just a real in your face, refreshing thing that, you don't get to hear much anymore.
Yeah, you have a good point. It's definitely old school, and I'm not ashamed of that. Sometimes musicians feel the need to keep up with the times. Well, obviously I didn't, so I'm going to have to kind of live with myself, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because a lot of times when you try to keep up with the times, you usually end up behind the times. Like when grunge came out, you had all these musicians that were trying to be grungy. And then when techno came out, you had guys that were like 80s metal guys like Tommy Lee putting out techno albums, and it didn't really sit well with that particular, his fan base, So I guess, whatever fan base I have, they're used to hearing a certain kind of music from me, and I don't mind giving it to them because that's really what I love. So it works out.
Well, you point out something interesting because, as musicians, sometimes you feel the need to, you want to change it up. And in changing it up, it means sometimes that you're going to annoy your fan base. And why do you feel as musicians, people feel the need to do that? I mean, I love a certain genre of music. I don't feel I need to color outside the lines. But you mentioned Tommy Lee. I mean, I grew up idolizing Tommy Lee, and it's like, you're doing that stuff. I don't know if I can listen to you anymore. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, if you grew up with something, and it's good and it's valid and it makes you feel good, why not stay with it? There's always going to be a market for it. There's always going to be people that like it. I'm always curious to hear Motley Crue play metal. Love it. Same thing with Dokken. Same thing with Rat. All those bands from the 80s, Metallica. I think it's great that they stuck to their guns, and why wouldn't they? It's like, hey, it works.
Well, and I mean, yeah, you're not splitting the atom, right? Go with what works, and I mean, suffice to say, I mean, there was a period of time in rock when the Beatles, for example, but they were
Yeah,
the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like, so what the other thing that I liked about this when I put it on is like, I'm thinking of the Sharpnel Records days where real good playing, double kick, bass lines, good vocals, guitar riffs, all kinds of stuff like that. Maybe some imagery that you don't typically get in songs anymore. Obviously, that's what you're trying to recapture a little bit of.
it is. Like for instance, like I don't know, the first song on the album, okay, which is, or any of the songs. I mean, "Savage at the Gate." That song, to me, the imagery is really right out of a Thomas Wolfe book, "Barbarian at the Gate," which is really like about the fact that our civilization is fragile, and there are a lot of outside forces that are pushing against it. So it's important for us to be who we are and not be afraid to be who we are. Same thing, and it's same thing in music. So same thing like the very first song on the album. Uh, well, one of the first songs, "Velvet Skies." It's a ballad, and for me, like I grew up. I mean, I didn't grow up because I'm old. I'm an old guy. But anyway, my formative years, were basically in the '80s, and like when Prince came out. I know it's kind of weird to talk about Prince in a metal setting, but I was floored by how great he was, and songs like "Purple Rain" and his abilities on the guitar. So sometimes, in the back of your mind, if you're a musician, you say, why don't I try writing a song like "Purple Rain"? And I did. I wrote a song. It's called "Velvet Skies." It's on the album. That was my tribute, in a way, to Prince, with a big guitar solo in the end, and I even used the word "purple," which Prince was known for that. The whole purple thing. So I mean,
Isn't it interesting though, Jack? That I
yeah,
mean, I remember growing up, and if you even dared to say that you liked Prince, or you dared to say that you liked somebody that was outside the genre, that it was you would be shunned at your school and shunned by your friends and whatever. And yet, so many musicians of your ilk, of others, idolize guys like him. What do you think? What do you think? Maybe back then it was kind of looked down upon. Was it a reputation thing, or you had to be cool all the time, or what was it? Do you think?
yeah, and I kind of fell party to that too, because when Prince came out, I was saying, oh, this is ridiculous. This is like more of the rap stuff that I hate, and look at the way the guy's dressed and blah blah blah. And then as the years went by, it was like, man, that guy can write some songs. And then I saw him at a jam, I think for the Grammys or something like that, and he was playing with Clapton and Jeff Beck and all these incredible guitar players. And not only was he holding his own, but I think he was like the best one on stage,
Yeah.
which kind of shocked the hell out of me. So I don't judge, I don't judge easily anymore, and I try to maintain that in the music that we do. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I mean, one of the songs on the album, Giles, the singer on the album, who's singing in the band, Giles Lavery actually rapped. I mean, you heard the album, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Did you? I don't know if you remember, but on one of the songs, he went into like a 25-second rap that's straight out of like something that one of the rappers like Jay-Z would have done. And at first, when I heard it, it was like, oh my god, I can't believe Giles threw that in. But then I thought about it, and it's like, why not? It works so well. There was like a little opening in the song where nothing was happening, and Giles just said, you know what, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna fill that gap. So he did it, and I loved it. I'm not afraid I'm not afraid to push the envelope. And
Well,
you know,
it must have been cool because I have to believe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
Given who you have on the album, you had to use some technology, correct, to get this
Yes,
done, like file sharing and those types of things.
a lot of that. Yeah.
But it must have been great to not. You used to see the old videos of Aerosmith in the studio and John Kalodner. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Just to be able to say, "This is my record. I'm going to do what I want with it. And however it turns up, it's on me." That must have been pretty cool.
It was, but I'm going to be honest and say that I'm one of these guys that I'm not a dictator. I don't think I have all the answers. So when you're dealing with a lot of great people, like the two guys that produced the album alongside me and Giles, were first the bass player Gene, who did a good job, and then really important is Thomas Merkler, who has a studio in Germany, and I think he played with a lot of great people, including Paul Diano. And when he would, give me some comments, maybe my first reaction, oh, I got to do it my way. And then I would think about it, I said, this guy is not trying to hurt me. He's trying to help me. Let me really listen to what he has to say. And I did that because some of the songs were very hard to put together and mix. And one of the things that we did that was very unorthodox was we did not use a click track.
Wow.
Which it's unheard of in the year 2025. That was done because the songs had a lot of parts in them. And to program a click track would have been an incredible, monumental job, and it would have locked us in to playing a certain way, which might not have sounded as spontaneous. And also, Rhino, as a drummer, his timing is good enough to not use a click track.
Well, and I mean, that again in itself is another throwback, because I mean, you heard of all the, I don't think Van Halen ever used a click track on any of the records, and you go back to a lot of them, and the click track things kind of, as a drummer, I mean, I remember being terrified I was going to be replaced because I couldn't play to a click track, and I learned, but a lot of that stuff didn't start till like some of the yacht rock stuff where they, Steely Dan wanted to 87 takes or something to take the first take. So I mean, that's unheard of. Did you find that it caused any issues with the process, like in terms of maybe punching in or being able to get parts?
Yeah, it did, but we had some really good people on the other end that were able to fix some of the things that didn't line up. Most of the stuff did line up, really, because it's hard to do punch-ins and edits without a click track. Yeah. The only way really that you can really pull that off is you have to have a drummer with impeccable timing. And Rhino's timing is like uncanny. I mean, he's like Scott Columbus. You mentioned Scott before. Yeah. And I had the honor and privilege of working out some songs on an early Burning Star album with Scott Columbus, and he was like a metronome. It was, you couldn't break out of, and you couldn't play off time with Scott. It's the same thing with Rhino. And of course, probably it has to do with the guy that picked both those guys, which is Joey DeMaio. So I'm sure Joey DeMaio had a very, very strong, thing that he was looking for in drummers. So the click track thing made it difficult, but not insurmountable. And for that, I really need to thank all the people that were connected with it, like Thomas Merkler, like Gene Cooper, and obviously Rhino. Now, as far as the song that Mark Zonder played on, I think there was a click track on that, simply because that came later on. That was a bonus track that we really did afterwards. But I mean, Mark Zonder could have nailed it without a click track also. He has impeccable timing as well. In fact, all those guys have better timing than I do. I'm just a sloppy lead guitarist, but it helps, when you're doing that, to have guys that really, play great behind you. And I just want to quote Keith Richards of the Stones real quickly. They asked him what his favorite kind of drummer was, and he said, the ones that I don't have to look back at.
Exactly.
Like if you're on stage, and you're playing, and it's like, oh, you have to look back because the drummer is like kind of like screwing you up. That's the drummer that you don't want. If you can do a whole 2-hour gig and never once have to look back at the drummer, that guy is solid. And those are the kind of drummers that I've been lucky as hell to work with. Like they probably look at me sometimes when I go off, but I don't have to look back at them.
But it's fascinating to me because I have recorded before, and I know like in one instance I recorded on something and we wanted to go back and use a backing track, and they were trying to set the vocals up, and it was really hard to do it, so we had to like re-record certain parts to get a backing track done. So that's fascinating. So you wind up on Brave Words Records,
Yes.
Canadian Connection. Metal Tim. I don't know Tim well, but I know he's a good guy. I know Brandvold well. How did you guys wind up on Brave Words?
Well, that was I had been doing some work with Giles. He helped my band Burning Star, got us on Global Rock, and really gave me a lot of great advice and signed us to Global Rock. And he was one of the first people that I told about my idea to do a sequel to Out of the Darkness. And I said, if you could help us get a label, that would be great, because I really suck at shopping. And, I'm, like a lot of times it's difficult to sell yourself, to like, you got to send out a bunch of emails, and then you got to call up people, and you have to be persistent. And so I was really happy when, Giles said, well, let me hear what you got. Let me hear some demos, Let me know if you got anything good. So I sent him some demos, and he said, yeah, I can work with this. We need to clean up all the loose ends. We need to get some better vocals. I did the what do you call it? The vocals before, the vocals to let someone know.
Scratch tracks.
Yeah, the scratch tracks, exactly, to let somebody know what the songs vaguely are going to sound like vocally. And I'm not a singer. And singing, I could sing certain things, maybe blues, but to sing heavy metal, oh my God, hitting high notes and then going into falsetto and then phrasing. And so I told Giles, I said, listen, I'll send you some stuff to give you an idea, but really it's going to be, you're going to have to really bring these vocal melodies out, because you're a singer and you're a great singer. You've got the stuff, you've got Warlord, you've got Alcatraz, you've been around the block. So I'm not going to try to tell you how to sing these songs, because that would just be stupid. And pretentious too. So I'm trying to. I don't want to be that guy.
Well, you bring something interesting up too, Jack, because metal singers have always, to the outer world, have always been like, ha ha ha, they just scream, they just do this, they just do that. And I had a friend that was doubling down one time, and he said, that's just a screamer. And then I found an isolated track, A Flight of Icarus by Iron Maiden. It was just Bruce Dickinson's voice, and his jaw hit the floor. And then I found one of, I think it was Rainbow in the Dark by Dio, and they don't realize. So it's like there's a lot that goes into being a singer of that genre.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned those. Just for fun, Gene Cooper played me Ramble On by Zeppelin, and he isolated the vocal track. And I was like amazed at how great Robert Plant was. So yeah, you can hear it, that these guys have it. And I love Bruce Dickinson and Eric Adams, another great singer.
Oh my God, absolutely.
And I've been lucky. Yeah, go ahead.
You were you may or may not know this, and I just realized this because there could be a trend that you're starting yourself and Ron Thal, Bumblefoot, because he put out an album that's a sequel to one that he put out in the '80s. And when I asked him why it took him so long, he just said, "I got busy. I just get busy with life, busy with playing, and I forgot about myself and my own stuff." And would that be the same case with you?
Absolutely. I think I'm going to steal that answer. I like. I like that because life gets in the way. I mean, it would be great if we could just focus on music and nothing else, but life does get in the way. A lot of things, and so all of a sudden, like I said, I got older, and I was thinking, and I started revisiting a lot of the stuff that I had done, and I was thinking, it would be cool to do a sequel, to do a part two.
Well, and like so many, sometimes when you do a sequel too quick, it doesn't resonate with people. And I do think I'm not great at math, but it's almost 40 years, we'll say, between albums. So I think you leave people hungry for. Certainly, when I played a friend this, and they were like, "Wow," they were, when are we going to get to hear more of that type of music? So I mean, that's a good sign that people are picking up on that.
I, I love hearing that, because really that's the most important thing. Just what somebody that's into that style, what their reaction is.
Well, and I've got a friend that plays in a band. He's in a prog band, and I always used to I joke with him that he would have been one of the perfect fit for one of Yngwie Malmsteen's singers because he has that kind of pedigree type thing. Do you have any plans? Like, what are your plans beyond the release? Do you want to play this live? Is there going to be any opportunity to play it live? What do you think?
Well, the album is coming out April 25th, and I really want to play out. I love playing out. I love performing in front of people. So, and Giles has affirmed to me that he would like to do that as well. He would like to perform these songs on stage. And really, so, Rhino also would be on board, and Gene Cooper would be on board on bass. As far as, keyboards, it's, we'll find someone. Obviously we might not be able to pay everyone, like we would want to, but I mean, if the budget allows, I would love to have like Jimmy Waldo do the keyboards and have Eric Juris on stage doing all the other guitar parts, with me. So it's really a question of budget. It's like, you can do a show and get the point across, and then you can do a super show and have, everybody on the album, laser lights and great sound system and, and so on and so forth. But really, regardless, I want to get out there and play. And I think without sounding cocky, I think the music is too good to not play it live. So
you're not sounding cocky at all. I concur because, like I say, there just seems to be this gap. Like the music of, I'll say, like the mid to late '80s. I always ask people this question. Like, it just seems to have endured, and now it seems to be almost as popular as it was. Your music on this kind of is that just before that. I think the next wave of British heavy metal, and I think the Alcatraz is certainly and that type of thing, and where it was like almost like a New York metal sort of sound is the vibe I get. And I say, I think this would definitely resonate with people once they hear it and see it live.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head because I can't escape who I am. And I went through the whole New York metal scene in the 80s. My manager at the time, Frank Cariola, owned the biggest nightclub in that whole area. And he would be regularly every week bringing in bands like Motorhead, like Cinderella, like Slayer, like Manowar. And of course, because he was our manager and because we didn't suck too badly, he put us in on a lot of the gigs, and so, yeah, I'm definitely a part of that whole New York scene. It's a real aggressive in your face scene. Giles kind of made me laugh when he called it tough guy New York metal. I'm definitely not a tough guy. I've been in bands with tough guys, And I'll have to say Red Forrester, who I was in a band with. Red Forrester was a tough guy. I mean, I'm 5'6". I think I've been in 2 fights my whole life. So I would not fit the profile of a tough guy. But musically, I'm a tough guy. And Red Forrester was a tough guy musically and somebody that you did not want to mess with. You know, he was like 6'2", and he was all muscle, and it was easy to set him off because I was in a lot of clubs and bars, you know, with Rhett, and sometimes it was like, I better try to calm them down. So yeah, it's tough guy New York metal from a guy who loves the tough guy metal, but I'm not a tough guy. Just want to clear that for the record.
Well, and what club was that, Jack?
Oh, it was like L'Amour's in Queens, L'Amour's in Brooklyn. There was clubs near my house like Sundance. There was another club called Sparks that was like 5 minutes from my house, and so I got to know Rhett really well. In fact, he stayed at my house the whole summer when my wife at the time was in Europe. I'm since divorced, and Rhett might have been one of the reasons, but anyway, that was a joke. But yeah, so there was like a lot of clubs, you know, near my house, and I would go, you know, with Rhett and hang out. And the other thing too is he was an incredible singer. I mean, he had this Dave Coverdale bluesy thing going on besides being able to, you know, to hit stratospheric notes and grit and all that. And really, the thing that I was looking for in Out of the Darkness Part 2, and I found it with Giles, is he can channel that grit, that bluesiness, that phrasing, you know, what he calls tough guy New York metal. He can channel that. And we had tried another singer who I don't really want to mention, but somebody that you might know who it is. And it just didn't work. It didn't work. Yeah. And so he was the guy that we needed to do that, you know?
Well, and, you know, it's a good, and I would never ask you to bring that singer up, but one of the things as musicians, I think that sometimes we think we can do it all. Right. And, you know, I record tracks for people, and one of the things that I always tell them is I might not be the guy. If I'm not the guy, I will find you the guy, but I'm not going to, you know, forward the work just for the sake of doing it. So I totally get that. And I never had the pleasure of going to any of those clubs that you're talking about, but growing up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, I read about them, and, you know, I certainly missed out. It was obviously a little bit before my time, but, you know, New York had this vibrant scene, man. It really did.
It was amazing. I mean, you know, you'd walk into these clubs, and every other person there was a musician, was working on an album or writing for a rock magazine. You had guys from Kerrang like flying in. You know, I remember when Dave Dickinson from Kerrang flew in to interview my band Burning Star, and you know, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, there were like journalists, you know, all over the place, and just writers, and so it was you know, as you said, it was a very vibrant scene. It was, you know, and then, you know, people would hand you their demos, you know, like check this out, and it would be like, I don't know, somebody like White Lion or somebody, you know, and then like 4 months later, you know, they'd be having platinum, you know, or it would be Anthrax. I mean, I remember doing a show with Anthrax at L'Amour's in Queens. I remember doing shows where, you know, we opened up for, I don't know, like Motorhead. We did a huge show in a theater. It was Motorhead, The Rods, and us. And it was great. And, you know, but you'd run into these people. They were like part of your daily life, you know. You'd see them, you know. And so it created that vibrancy, and it also created a bit of a competition. You know, it's like you wanted to do something that was going to be great. You weren't going to, you weren't just going to make like a little demo and say, and like and excuse yourself as you hand it to someone and say, well, we didn't have any money to do a proper demo, but let me know what you think. No,
Right.
it had to be on a high level. And so that was kind of the thing with that whole New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, metal scene. It was pretty cool. In fact, I remember seeing Bon Jovi in like I think it was like 1984 or when did they have Runaway? Do you remember?
It's funny because I'm reading a book about that right now, and it was '84 when that came out.
Okay. So I remember seeing them like in '83, or right around there, literally at a small club 2 minutes from my house in Huntington, Long Island. And I remember seeing them, and I think it was like '83. And I remember thinking, these guys are gonna be huge. That's it. And it wasn't because I thought, John Bon Jovi was an incredible singer. Though afterwards, I really did start believing that he was pretty darn good. They just had that chemistry, And like 3-4 years later, when I saw Guns N' Roses in the club that my manager owned, which was Sundance, I couldn't believe how amazing they were. All of them, Axl, Slash, they were like, and I remember hanging out with them backstage, and I think in their hands they had the latest issue of Kerrang, where they were on the cover, which was pretty amazing because, the album had not gone gold yet at all. I mean, I think it had only been out, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks, and I remember, being backstage and, because, getting introduced, from my manager, Frank would say, hey, I want to introduce you to a band that I managed, Jack Starr, blah, 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 And I just looked at him and I said, get ready for the ride. You guys are going to be huge beyond belief. And they were.
Jack, these are stories that I love hearing about them. I love talking about them. I'm listening to you tell the stories, and there's a tendency with musicians to kind of backslap and then backstab, right? And you're I get you're very sincere in what you saw, what you remember, and what you say about people. And I hope when people look at this interview, they take that away and go, okay, this is the way you're supposed to do it, right? Because you got to lift everybody up. There's no reason to slice each other down, right?
Absolutely. And it's kind of like when I was younger, and all these people were always like putting Yngwie down. Oh, all he does is play fast. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And then I met the guy, a friend of mine named Steve Thompson, who's a producer who actually worked on Appetite for Destruction. I think he was co-producer. Anyway, I met Yngwie at Steve's house. And so I was expecting, to meet some guy that was going to be all really, conceited and blah, blah, and just not a nice person. And he was charming. Go figure, right? And he showed me actually they had just gotten an endorsement from Fender, so there was Yngwie Stratocasters, and he proudly handed me one, and he showed it to me in Steve's house, and it was like, man, this guy's like a regular guy, and I thought that was really cool, and I also thought he was a great player. He started playing some blues, which is something that I really dig. Besides epic metal and besides shred and all that, I really respect somebody that can pick up a guitar and start playing some blues. And so I thought he was great, and that kind of stuff like leaves an impression on you. And so I hope that when I interact with someone, they don't think, oh, that guy was full of himself or whatever. because number one, I'm not, and number two, it's really a stupid thing to do because you'll turn off people. You know, like when I was hanging out with Scott Columbus, I thought he was like the nicest guy. You know, and I asked him, for help. I said, this song goes like this, and then it goes to this part. What do you think? And he was just very forthcoming, and I thought it was great. That he had just come back from playing in front of, I don't know, 100,000 people in Brazil. And he vaguely heard of who I was. But I'm not somebody on his radar, like Bruce Dickinson or somebody. And so I think it's really cool. When that happens.
No, I do too, and I think that again, the message. I think it's a great message. It's a master class on how to be a good human being / musician. So I appreciate that. So last question here. So April 25th, the album's coming out. I'm assuming they're going to be able to find it everywhere. But where do I direct my folks to get their hands on this?
Well, I'm pretty sure because of the Brave Words magazine and everything, and Giles is really on top of all the distributors and everything. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be that difficult to find. And if it is, then I would, suggest to anyone that's listening, contact Brave Words or contact Giles, who's on Facebook, or contact me. I'll get back to you. And because I really would like anybody that's interested to be able to find it and listen to it,
Amen. Jack Starr, thank you so much. I do apologize. It took a little bit, but we were having snow, and if you can believe it, the internet was acting all weird the last couple of days. So
I heard it for about a couple of minutes for a while, and then it straightened out. Yeah, but it's all good. But it's kind of been cold out here in Florida for a couple of days. It actually dropped to like 59 degrees, which I know sounds probably funny to you, but it's for Florida. That's cold. Right now we're back to 80, and I'm loving it.
I was going to say, you had to put track pants on for a couple of days.
Exactly, brother.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me plug the album.
You bet.
Okay. Take care, man. Peace.